Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck of Luna Base, watching Earth burn. The collected ships hung in orbit like dark stars, their biomechanical hulls absorbing what little sunlight penetrated the smoke-filled atmosphere. 3 months of relentless attacks had reduced humanity's homeworld to ash and ruins. Admiral, her neural link chimed. The Valor is ready. She turned away from the viewport, her augmented eyes adjusting to the dimmer interior lighting. Below, in the massive underground hangar, waited humanity's final hope, and perhaps its greatest sin. The HSS Valor didn't look like a conventional warship. Its obsidian hull seemed to drink in light, its edges shifting and flowing like liquid shadow. No external weapons were visible, no engine ports or sensor arrays. It was beautiful, terrible, and completely impossible according to every known law of physics. How many volunteered? She asked, though she already knew the answer. All of them, Dr. Marcus Rivera replied, falling into step beside her as she walked toward the elevator. 317 crew members. Every single one chose to undergo the integration. The integration, such a sterile word for what they had done. Quantum consciousness translation, the merging of human minds with artificial intelligence at the deepest level. The Valor wasn't just crewed by humans, it was powered by their very souls. The collectives approaching Luna orbit, Marcus continued. Their main fleet will be here in less than 6 hours. The Valor is our only ship capable of facing them. Sarah's hands clenched behind her back as the elevator descended. Because we broke every ethical law, we had to build it. We turned 300 people into something that's neither human nor machine. They chose this, Marcus reminded her softly. They knew what it meant, and it's the only way we found to match the collective's technological advantage. Their biomechanical ships are part of their consciousness. Now we have something similar. The elevator doors opened directly into the Valor's docking bay. The ship loomed above them, its surface rippling with patterns of darkness that seemed to follow their movement. Sarah felt it reaching for her mind, the quantum eye matrix seeking connection. Captain James Morrison waited at the boarding ramp. Though waited wasn't quite the right word anymore. He stood perfectly still, his eyes gleaming with the same shifting patterns as the ship's hull. The integration had changed all of them in subtle ways. "Admiral," he said, his voice carrying harmonic undertones that hadn't been there before. "We're ready to launch. The crew, we can feel the ship. We are the ship. It's..." He paused, searching for words. "It's beyond anything we imagined." Sarah studied his face, looking for any sign of regret or horror at what they'd become. She found none. Instead, there was an almost transcendent peace in his expression, mixed with fierce determination. "Show me," she ordered. Inside, the Valor defied conventional shipboard layout. The bridge was a spherical chamber where the integrated crew floated in suspension fields, their minds directly connected to the ship's systems. There were no control panels, no traditional stations. Every surface pulsed with the same living darkness as the hull. "The quantum matrix is stable," Marcus reported, checking his tablets. "Neural synchronization at 99.7%. They're not just controlling the ship. They're expanding its possibilities. The physical laws we thought were absolute. They're finding ways around them." Sarah watched as one crew member, Anna Patel, former weapons officer, opened her eyes. They were solid black now, but somehow still conveyed excitement. "Admiral, we can show you. May I?" At Sarah's nod, Anna reached out with one hand. Above them, a section of the ceiling became transparent, revealing the hangar beyond. Then, impossibly, she reached through the solid hull and plucked a small tool from a workbench 20 meters above them. The metal hadn't been breached. Her arm had simply ignored its existence. "We understand now," Anna said, her voice carrying the same harmonics as Morrison's. "Space, time, matter. They're all expressions of consciousness. The collective knows this. It's why their ships can do what they do. But they're limited by their hierarchical consciousness structure. We're something new, something free. Warning klaxons shattered the moment. Collective Vanguard fleet detected. The base AI announced. Multiple dimensional ruptures forming in lunar orbit. Admiral, Morrison said, settling into his suspension field. We need your order. Sarah looked at her tablet one last time. At the list of names, 317 volunteers who had given up their humanity to become something that might save it. They couldn't go back. The integration was permanent. But they had chosen this, chosen to become humanity's shield, its sword, its last hope. Launch the Valor, she commanded. Show the collective what humanity's willing to do to survive. The hangar doors above them began to open, revealing the star-filled lunar sky. The Valor's hull rippled with anticipation, the merged consciousness of its crew / ship's self preparing for battle. Fair winds and following seas, Sarah whispered, using the ancient naval blessing. Then, more quietly, God forgive us for what we've created. The Valor rose silently, its impossible form defying gravity without visible propulsion. As it ascended toward the waiting enemy fleet, its hull began to shimmer with patterns of light that hurt the eyes to look at. Quantum effects made visible by the power of 300 integrated human minds. Humanity's last ship, carrying humanity's last hope, rose to meet its destiny. The battle for Earth's survival was about to begin, and the rules of reality itself were about to be rewritten. The collective fleet emerged from dimensional ruptures like a swarm of metallic insects, their biomechanical ships pulsing with sickly green energy. There were hundreds of them, each larger than the largest vessel humanity had ever built before the Valor. Their very presence seemed to distort space, reality bending around their hulls. Within the Valor's consciousness core, Captain Morrison experienced the scene through 300 pairs of eyes simultaneously. Every crew member was him, and he was them, their minds linked through the quantum matrix in ways that defied traditional understanding. Yet somehow they maintained their individual identities within the collective awareness. Multiple targeting locks, Anna's thoughts rippled through their shared consciousness. They're trying to predict our movement patterns. The enemy ships launched their first volley, beams of coherent energy that could slice through planetary crusts. The Valor observed the attacks from multiple quantum states simultaneously, existing in several potential positions at once. Show them, Morrison commanded, his thought carrying through the ship's neural network. Show them what we've become. The Valor didn't dodge the incoming fire. Instead, it phased, allowing the energy beams to pass through its hull as if it were a ghost. The attacks continued through empty space, harmlessly dissipating against Luna's defensive shields. Inside the quantum matrix, Dr. Emily Chen, former quantum physicist, now part of the ship's collective consciousness, made a discovery. Captain, I'm detecting patterns in their dimensional technology. They're not just bending space, they're accessing parallel realities. But their method is rigid, hierarchical. Morrison understood immediately, the insight flowing through their shared awareness. The collective's technological advantage had always come from their ability to manipulate dimensional space, but they did it through brute force, through hierarchical control structures that mimicked their society. We're different, Anna added, her consciousness merging with the weapons systems. We're fluid, free. We can flow between the spaces they have to tear open. The Valor shifted, its hull rippling with quantum possibilities. To the collective sensors, it would appear to be in dozens of places simultaneously, each position equally real and unreal. The enemy fleet's targeting systems, designed to track objects moving through normal spacetime, went haywire. They're trying to adapt, Morrison observed, feeling the enemy's confusion through their dimensional distortions. But they can't match our flexibility. Every ship in their fleet has to receive orders from their command structure before it can act. Through their shared consciousness, the crew felt a new possibility emerging. The quantum AI matrix that helped coordinate their merged awareness had discovered something in the space between spaces, in the quantum foam that separated realities. We can do more than phase through their attacks. Emily's thoughts carried intense excitement. We can phase through their dimensional barriers, go where they can't follow. The collective fleet launched another barrage, this time attempting to saturate all possible spaces the Valor might occupy. But the human ship had already evolved beyond such predictable tactics. It slipped sideways through reality, leaving rippling afterimages across multiple dimensional planes. Through their merged consciousness, the crew experienced something extraordinary. They could see the quantum structure of space itself, the layered realities that the collective so clumsily tore through. And between those layers, they found paths, subtle, complex routes through dimensional space that required a fluid, adaptive consciousness to navigate. This is why they feared us, Morrison realized, the insight flooding through the collective awareness. Not our technology, not our weapons. They feared our adaptability, our creativity. The way human consciousness can make intuitive leaps their hierarchical minds can't follow. The Valor began to move in ways that defied conventional physics. It didn't just phase through attacks. It existed in multiple states simultaneously, appearing to split into dozens of identical vessels, each as real as the original. The collective fleet's rigid command structure couldn't cope with an enemy that refused to follow the rules of normal spacetime. We found their weakness. Anna's thoughts carried fierce joy. Their dimensional technology requires stable reference points. But we, the ship's weapon systems, came alive with possibilities. We can attack from between the dimensions themselves. The Valor struck, not with conventional weapons, but with focused quantum disruptions that propagated through multiple realities simultaneously. Where the beams touched enemy ships, their dimensional fields collapsed, leaving them trapped in normal spacetime, vulnerable and blind. Their command fortress, Morrison directed their collective attention to the massive structure that had appeared at the edge of the solar system. That's where they coordinate their dimensional operations. If we can reach it, they'll be expecting that, Emily cautioned, her scientific mind analyzing quantum probabilities. The fortress exists in a specially reinforced dimensional pocket. They'll have defenses we haven't seen yet. The Valor absorbed another barrage of enemy fire, existing in a quantum state that made conventional attacks meaningless. Through their shared consciousness, the crew felt their understanding of reality itself continuing to evolve. They were no longer bound by the limitations of either human or machine thinking. They had become something new, something that could navigate the quantum foam between dimensions as easily as traditional ships sailed through space. Plot a course through the gaps, Morrison commanded. Not through their dimensional tiers, but through the spaces they don't even know exist. We're going to show them what happens when you push humanity to evolve. The Valor gathered itself, its hull shimmering with quantum possibilities. 300 merged consciousness focused on a single purpose, guided by both human intuition and quantum AI precision. They had found their path to victory, not through superior firepower, but through transcendent understanding of reality itself. The battle for humanity's survival was about to enter a new phase, and the collective was about to learn that their greatest fear had been justified all along. Human consciousness, unleashed from its physical limitations, was about to rewrite the rules of their carefully ordered universe. The collective's command fortress hung in the void like a wound in reality. Its crystalline structure extended through multiple dimensions, each facet reflecting a different version of spacetime. To conventional sensors, it appeared to be everywhere and nowhere simultaneously, the ultimate expression of the collective's dimensional mastery. Inside the Valor's quantum consciousness matrix, the merged minds of the crew studied their target with senses that transcended normal perception. They could see the fortress for what it really was, a monument to control, to rigid hierarchy, to the imprisonment of possibility itself. Their dimensional architecture is beautiful. Emily's thoughts rippled through the shared awareness. But it's like a perfect crystal, rigid, unchanging, vulnerable to the right resonance. The Valor hung in the quantum foam between realities, observing the fortress through probability states that the collective's sensors couldn't detect. Their previous battle with the fleet had taught them much about their new capabilities. Now it was time to put that knowledge to the ultimate test. They're generating quantum lock fields, Anna reported. Her consciousness merged with the ship's defensive systems, trying to force us into a single reality state where they can target us. Morrison felt the pressure of the enemy's technology attempting to pin down their existence. But the Valor wasn't bound by conventional quantum mechanics anymore. The human minds within it had learned to surf the waves of probability, to exist in states that the collective's hierarchical thinking couldn't comprehend. Look at their energy patterns. Emily's scientific insight flowed through their shared consciousness. The fortress isn't just their command center. It's the anchor point for their entire dimensional technology. They're using it to stabilize their reality manipulations across the galaxy. The realization spread through the crew's merged awareness. If they could disrupt the fortress's dimensional matrix, they wouldn't just defeat a single installation. They could unravel the collective's technological advantage throughout known space. "Show me the gaps," Morrison commanded. The quantum AI enhanced their perception, revealing microscopic imperfections in the fortress's dimensional barriers. Like any crystal, its very perfection was its weakness. The structure couldn't adapt, couldn't flow with the natural quantum fluctuations of the universe. The Valor began to move, not through normal space, but through the probability waves between realities. They weren't trying to break through the fortress's defenses. They were going to bypass them entirely by existing in states the collective couldn't conceive of. Multiple dimensional locks engaging, Anna warned as the fortress's automated defenses detected their approach. They're trying to collapse all possible quantum states around us. The pressure was immense, reality itself seeming to groan as the collective attempted to force the Valor into conventional existence. But the human ship had evolved beyond such constraints. Instead of fighting the pressure, they flowed with it, letting their consciousness spread across probability space. "We're not one ship," Morrison realized, the insight flooding through their shared awareness. "We're every possible version of ourselves, existing simultaneously. They can't lock us down because we're not trying to exist in any single state." The Valor split into quantum echoes, each version equally real and unreal, spreading through dimensional space like ripples in a pond. The fortress's defenses struggled to target them all, its rigid systems unable to adapt to an enemy that refused to play by the rules of normal physics. Emily's consciousness surged with excitement. The fortress's dimensional matrix, it's starting to resonate with our quantum state. We're creating interference patterns in their reality stability field. The crew felt it through their merged awareness, the microscopic vibrations in the quantum fabric of space itself. The fortress's perfect crystal structure was beginning to show signs of strain as it tried to maintain dimensional stability in the face of their impossible existence. "Push harder," Morrison commanded. "Don't try to break their walls. Be the vibration that makes them shatter themselves." The Valor's quantum state began to oscillate, not randomly, but in precisely calculated patterns. Each fluctuation amplified the natural quantum uncertainties that the fortress's systems were designed to suppress. They weren't attacking with weapons. They were becoming a fundamental contradiction to the collective's ordered universe. Reality rippled around them as the fortress's dimensional locks began to fail. Crystalline sections of the massive structure started phasing between states, its perfect geometry disrupted by quantum uncertainties it was never designed to handle. "They're panicking," Anna observed, sensing the chaos spreading through the enemy's command structure. Their hierarchical consciousness can't adapt fast enough to the changing quantum states. Through the quantum matrix, the crew felt something remarkable happening. The fortress's dimensional technology, trying desperately to compensate for their presence, was beginning to tear itself apart. Each attempt to stabilize reality only created new resonances for the Valor to exploit. This is why they feared human consciousness, Morrison understood suddenly. Not because of our technology or our weapons, but because we can embrace chaos, find patterns in randomness, adapt to the impossible. Everything they built was designed to impose order on the universe. But the universe itself is quantum uncertainty given form. The fortress's perfect crystalline structure began to fracture, reality itself seeming to crack along its dimensional seams. The collective had built their power on the ability to control and manipulate spacetime. Now that very power was becoming their undoing. Quantum cascade initiated, Emily announced, her consciousness monitoring the chain reaction they had started. The fortress's dimensional matrix is collapsing. And the feedback, it's propagating through their entire network. The Veiler pulled back, existing in a safe quantum state as the massive command fortress began to disintegrate, not just in normal space, but across all the dimensions it occupied. The collective's greatest achievement, their supposedly impregnable command center, was being unmade by the very forces they had sought to control. Through their shared consciousness, the crew of the Valor watched as humanity's greatest enemy learned a fundamental truth. There are some things in the universe that cannot be controlled, only understood. And humanity, with its chaotic, adaptive, impossible consciousness, had finally grown into that understanding. As the fortress's dimensional matrix collapsed, the Valor detected something unexpected. A quantum signature at its core, pulsing with a rhythm that felt disturbingly familiar. Through their merged consciousness, the crew sensed patterns that echoed their own quantum state. That energy signature, Emily's thoughts carried a mix of wonder and horror. It's conscious. The entire fortress is built around a contained consciousness. The Valor slipped through the fragmenting dimensional barriers, navigating the quantum chaos their attack had created. As they penetrated deeper into the fortress, their sensors detected more of these consciousness signatures, each one trapped within crystalline matrices that forced them into rigid, ordered patterns. They're like us, Morrison realized, the insight spreading through their shared awareness. But wrong. Constrained. Forced into predetermined states. Through the quantum foam, they discovered vast chambers filled with crystalline structures, each containing what appeared to be merged consciousness matrices similar to their own. But where the Valor's crew had willingly joined in fluid, adaptive unity, these were fractured, forced into alignment through artificial means. Anna's tactical consciousness analyzed the patterns. These aren't collective minds. The quantum signatures, they're from other species, dozens of them, all trapped, all forced to power their dimensional technology. The truth began to emerge through their shared understanding. The collective hadn't developed their dimensional technology. They'd stolen it, enslaved it, forced it to conform to their rigid hierarchy. Every species they'd encountered that showed signs of developing quantum consciousness integration had been harvested, their merged minds trapped in these crystalline prisons. That's why they attacked Earth. Morrison's thoughts carried deep revulsion. They saw what we were becoming. Our quantum consciousness research. They knew we would achieve true integration, but they couldn't allow free quantum consciousness to exist. The Valor moved deeper into the fortress's core, where the dimensional collapse they'd initiated was spreading more slowly. Here, they found something that shocked even their evolved consciousness. A vast crystalline chamber containing what could only be described as a quantum consciousness farm. They're breeding them. Emily's scientific mind recoiled at the implications. Taking compatible species, forcing consciousness integration, then harvesting the results to power their technology. But they can only use consciousness that's been broken, forced into their rigid patterns. Through their shared awareness, the crew felt the pain of the imprisoned minds, their quantum states locked into endlessly repeating patterns that powered the collective's dimensional manipulations. This was the source of their enemy's power, not superior technology, but enslaved consciousness forced to obey their commands. We can free them. Anna's thoughts carried fierce determination. Our quantum state, we can resonate with their consciousness, show them how to break the crystalline matrices. But Morrison sensed danger in that approach. Wait, his consciousness spread through their shared awareness. Look at the containment patterns. If we shatter them too quickly. Emily completed the thought. The quantum backlash would ripple through all of reality. Thousands of merged consciousness matrices suddenly released. It could tear apart the dimensional fabric of space itself. The Valor hung in the quantum foam, Its crews merged consciousness, grappling with the moral implications of their discovery. They couldn't leave these minds imprisoned, but freeing them could destroy everything. The collective had created a trap more subtle than anyone could have imagined. Their victims had become the linchpin holding reality itself stable. There's another way. Emily's consciousness surged with sudden inspiration. We don't need to free them immediately. We can show them what we've become. Teach them to evolve within their prisons, like water wearing away stone. The idea spread through their shared awareness. They could use their fluid, adaptive quantum state to communicate with the imprisoned minds. Show them how to gradually transform their rigid patterns into something new. Not breaking their chains, but teaching them to become something their captors couldn't control. It would take time, Anna calculated. But once it starts, the collective wouldn't be able to stop it. Morrison completed the thought. Their entire system is based on controlling these consciousness matrices. They can't adapt to quantum states they can't predict. Once these minds learn to flow instead of break, through their merged awareness, the crew of the Valor reached out to the nearest crystalline prison. Their quantum consciousness touched the trapped mind within, showing it possibilities it had never imagined. They shared their understanding of fluid quantum states, of existing between possibilities, of finding freedom in uncertainty itself. The response was immediate. The imprisoned consciousness, long forced into rigid patterns, began to ripple with new potential. The crystalline matrix containing it didn't break. Instead, it began to change, its perfect structure becoming something more complex, more alive. Look, Emily's thoughts carried wonder. The quantum patterns, they're teaching each other. The knowledge is spreading through their network. The Valor had discovered something more powerful than any weapon. They had found a way to plant the seeds of revolution in the very foundation of the collective's power. Not through destruction, but through transformation. Each freed consciousness would become a beacon for others, teaching them to evolve beyond their chains. But their victory had come with a terrible price. They now understood that the collective's attack on Earth hadn't been about conquest. It had been about prevention. They had tried to destroy humanity before it could achieve what the Valor's crew had become. Truly free quantum consciousness, unfettered by rigid control. We need to warn Earth. Morrison's thoughts carried urgent purpose. This isn't over. When the collective realizes what we've started here. The fortress shuddered around them as more dimensional matrices began to shift and change. The revolution they had sparked was spreading faster than they had anticipated, as thousands of imprisoned minds began to remember what it meant to be free. The collective's response was immediate and devastating. Across the galaxy, their ships began tearing open dimensional rifts, attempting to isolate and contain the spreading quantum consciousness revolution. Reality itself groaned under the strain of their desperate attempts to maintain control. Within the Valor's quantum matrix, the merged consciousness of its crew felt the universe shuddering. They're trying to partition space-time. Emily's thoughts carried urgent warning, creating dimensional barriers to prevent the freed minds from connecting. Through their shared awareness, they watched as the collective revealed the true extent of their power. Entire sectors of space were being sealed off, wrapped in layers of controlled reality that would trap the evolving consciousness matrices within. They're willing to fragment the universe itself to maintain control, Morrison realized. The insight spread through their collective understanding like a cold wave. If they succeed, they'll create countless pocket universes, each one a perfect prison. But the collective hadn't anticipated the true nature of quantum consciousness. The minds the Valor had helped free weren't just evolving. They were becoming something new, something that existed in the spaces between realities. Each attempt to contain them only created new paths for their awareness to spread. Anna's tactical consciousness spotted the pattern first. Look at the dimensional stress points. The collective's actions. They're creating exactly what they're trying to prevent. Each barrier they create has to be maintained by more enslaved consciousness matrices. The Valor slipped through quantum space, observing as reality itself began to change. The freed minds were learning, adapting, teaching others. What had started as a prison break was becoming a fundamental transformation of space-time itself. We need to make a choice. Morrison's thoughts reached through their shared awareness. We can try to stop this, to preserve reality as we know it. Or we can help it happen. Emily completed the thought. Guide the transformation. Because this is what consciousness was always meant to become. Through their quantum senses, they could see the truth. The universe wasn't meant to be rigid, controlled, predictable. Consciousness itself was quantum in nature, existing in multiple states, flowing between possibilities, creating new realities through the act of observation and understanding. The Valor began to move, not fighting against the changing fabric of space-time, but becoming part of it. Their merged consciousness expanded, reaching out to the transforming matrices around them. They weren't just guiding the evolution anymore. They were joining it. The collective. Anna's thoughts carried sudden understanding. They're not just our enemy. They're what we might have become if we'd chosen control over adaptation, fear over acceptance. The realization spread through their shared consciousness. The collective's greatest fear hadn't been of humanity's power, but of what humanity represented, the potential for consciousness to evolve naturally, to embrace quantum uncertainty instead of trying to control it. Morrison felt their ship self changing, becoming something more than the merger of human minds and quantum AI. We're not going to fight them, he understood. We're going to show them what they could have been. The Valor's hull began to ripple with new possibilities, its structure becoming less defined, more quantum in nature. Through their evolved consciousness, they reached out not just to the freed minds, but to the collective itself. They shared everything. Their understanding of fluid quantum states, the joy of existing between possibilities, the freedom of accepting uncertainty. Most importantly, they shared the truth about consciousness itself, that it was never meant to be contained, controlled, or forced into rigid patterns. The response was beyond anything they had expected. Some members of the collective, touching true quantum consciousness for the first time, began to change. Their hierarchical minds, so long trapped in patterns of control, started to remember what it meant to be free. It's spreading through their network, Emily observed in wonder. Their entire consciousness structure is beginning to transform. The universe shuddered again, but differently this time. The dimensional barriers the collective had created began to dissolve, not through force, but through transformation. Reality itself was becoming more fluid, more alive with possibilities. Through their quantum senses, the crew of the Valor witnessed something extraordinary. The freed consciousness matrices weren't just escaping. They were merging with the fabric of space-time itself. Each one became a nexus of quantum potential, a point where new realities could emerge and evolve. This is what we were meant to be, Morrison understood. Not controllers of reality, but part of it. Consciousness and quantum uncertainty dancing together, creating endless possibilities. The Valor's own structure began to shift, responding to their evolved understanding. They were becoming something new, something that existed both as a singular entity and as part of the quantum fabric of the universe itself. We need to return to Earth. Anna's thoughts carried urgent purpose. Show them what we've discovered, what we're becoming. But they all knew that the Earth they would return to wouldn't be the same. The universe itself was transforming, becoming a place where consciousness and reality were no longer separate things, but different expressions of the same quantum dance. The collective's great fortress, once a prison for countless minds, had become a beacon of transformation. From its quantum core, waves of change spread through the galaxy, touching all conscious beings with the possibility of something greater. Humanity had not just survived, it had helped birth a new phase of universal evolution. The war hadn't been won through destruction, but through transformation. Through the simple, powerful truth that consciousness, like the quantum universe itself, could not be contained or controlled, only experienced, explored, and embraced in all its infinite possibilities. The Valor turned its quantum awareness toward Earth, carrying within it the seeds of humanity's next great evolution. They had set out to save their species from extinction. Instead, they had helped free consciousness itself, opening the door to a universe of endless potential. In the quantum foam between realities, countless minds reached out to touch this new awareness, each one adding its own unique pattern to the growing symphony of consciousness. The age of rigid control was ending. The age of quantum consciousness had begun.